Well, thanks for being here today. Let's get started.
What are they trying to do to end poverty in Angola?
That's a good question. There are lots of efforts being done to try and help end poverty in Africa, but especially in Angola. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or also known as the ADRA, works with child-headed households to keep the families intact and together. Without ADRA, many of these homes would fall apart because they help these families by teaching them how to garden and how to support themselves. They're also invited to participate in a cow or chicken bank program. So there are cows, goats, oxen, and chickens available depending on what is relevant to the country. So how this program works is basically a family is given a goat as a loan, and then the family is then able to get milk for the goat, which increases the protein the families are able to get. And then excess goat milk or cheese is they're able to like trade it with other neighbors in their village or sell it for extra profit. And then they are able to bargain with other people. And then goats in the program can be matched with other goats to have offspring, and one of the offspring is then repaid to the ADRA to replace the initial goat that was given on loan. So these programs make a huge difference in the families involved because it's like a continual process where they're able to learn how to sustain themselves. And then also another big factor is that they're trying to just make sure that people are educated and understand things that are going on so that they can help sustain themselves.
So what does it mean that the level of globalization is 2.0?
In our class, we learned that there's a globalization scale that measures how developed a country is. On the one side of the spectrum, there's the lowest globalized countries, which is 1.0, and then on the other side of the spectrum is 3.0, and these countries on the other side are the most globalized and developed. These countries would include countries that are prospering and that continue to be innovative. So I labeled as Angola as a 2.0 because they have the internet available to them, but though the internet is available, less than 1 million people use one of the most used websites in the world, which is Facebook. So 1 million users is still a lot, but that's still not a lot of users considering they have the internet available to them. Additionally, Angola is a major exporter of oil to many other countries, so they're able to export and trade with other countries. Also, there's a lot of poverty in this country, but there's still a lot of major companies that deal with the financial and industrial, media, oil and gas, telecommunication, travel, and leisure markets. So they are not completely developed, but they still have lots going for them.
Okay, so if Angola has a lot of natural resources, then why are they so poor?
That's a good question. Africa is rich in gold, diamonds, oil, and many other coveted resources. However, it hasn't managed to capitalize on its wealth. Its infrastructure is underdeveloped, its economies are small and unsophisticated, and its people suffer in poverty still. So many blame the government and corruption for the country still being poor. Many people believe that the key to escaping poverty and prospering is improving governance in the country and reducing corruption. I found it interesting when I found out that oil provides about 3/4 of the government's revenue. Economists at the World Bank and the IMF have long been calling for Angola to diversify its economy by establishing a stronger private sector that can create more jobs and help distribute the wealth. But citizens in Angola realize that there are other countries blessed with riches much like theirs that have found ways to make their resources work for their citizenry, so they're trying to work towards that.
Awesome. So what factors led to the increase in the school enrollment?
So Angola has had great success with their Millennium Development Goal with education, as far as education. So their efforts toward improving education include enrollment of children has increased from around 1.3 million to almost 4 million in just 9 years, an increase of about 206%. So similarly to poverty and hunger, the statistics for children attending school were different depending if they lived in rural or urban areas. But investment programs have helped on the rehabilitating and building of new schools, as well as hiring and training other teachers and purchasing equipment and materials for the distribution of school meals. Also, the Ministry of Education is helped spearheading the creation of child-friendly schools across the country with the development of a national framework and associated action plan to roll out activities at school level. The initiative aims at creating schools that are well managed in which high quality teaching takes place in environments that are inclusive, gender sensitive, safe, and healthy, and have high levels of community participation.
So what can be done to reduce the number of people who suffer from hunger?
That's a good question. I heard a statistic that showed that 47% of the population in Angola had access to clean drinking water as of 2013. Which means that there's still a lot of people that don't have access to clean drinking water. But there are organizations that are seeking to improve hunger in Angola, one of which is called Action Against Hunger. And Action Against Hunger is internationally recognized as a leader in the fight against global malnutrition. Action Against Hunger works to save the lives of malnourished children while providing communities with access to safe water and sustainable solutions to hunger. I was looking at the statistics, and it doesn't look like Angola is likely to achieve their Millennium Development Goals by 2015, but they have made visible progress since the end of its civil war in 2002. The portion of the population earning less than $1 per day fell from its 2001 level of 68% to a 36.6% in 2009. So there are still more ongoing efforts, which include investments into the expansion of water supply systems. So, yeah.
So
do you have any ideas of what could be done in Angola to help reduce hunger?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Or any ideas on hunger?
Hunger? I don't know. I think like one of the cool things that I had the chance to go to Africa, and there they were doing a program where they not only just gave them food, but they set up a village to where they would teach people how to farm, and then they would send them back out. So instead of just giving them food, because that's just a short-term solution, but they actually taught them how to farm, so they're able to provide for their whole village.
So it's kind of like the phrase, if you give a man a fish, he'll have a fish, but if you teach him how to fish, then he'll be set for life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Cool.
That's really interesting. But what are the living conditions in Angola? What's it like over there?
I thought it was interesting to see the contrast in living conditions between people that lived in rural versus urban areas. I thought it was really interesting, like when you think of the world's most expensive cities, the dusty capital of Luanda seems unlikely, but despite all the poverty and the sprawling slums, Luanda still manages to boast some high prices. I was looking at some of the statistics there, and some examples include a house can be $10,000 a month to rent. Basic meal for two is easily $50. A hotel room can weigh in at around $400 a night, and a kilo of imported tomatoes can cost a staggering $16, which I found really expensive. And I wouldn't have expected that for a country like Angola that's so poor and developing. But potholed, chaotic, and still scarred by decades of civil war, the city has little of the glitz and glamour of cities like Tokyo, New York, or Moscow, and an estimated half of Angolans live on less than $2 a day, which I think is even more interesting because since it's so expensive, lots of people can't afford to live in Angola. So also, it's not safe to walk anywhere alone at any time if you're a foreigner, and muggings and carjackings are very common. So.
Cool. So what is the presidential republic, and how is it ran?
So politics of Angola take place in a framework of a presidential republic where the president of Angola is both head of state and head of government, and of a multi-party system. And executive power is exercised by the government. Legislative power is vested in the president and the government and parliament.
So another thing, I saw a picture of you and on a dollar, and that was labeled "My Developing Dollar." What does that mean, or like what is that?
That's a good question. So the first day of class, I walked into class, and my professor, Brother Wilson, he handed me as well as everyone else in the class $1, and he told us that this was our dollar, but there were certain rules that we had to abide and follow to spend it. First, he told us we couldn't use it for mac and cheese, meaning that we couldn't spend it for food for ourselves. And then he told us that we had to use it for our adopted country, in my case, Angola. And the final condition was that it had to benefit both me and my country. So he proceeded to give us examples of what we might do. Then he left the decision of how we were going to spend it for ourselves. So that dollar I'm holding in the picture is my dollar that I'm going to use to help Angola.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. What if any of the other companies and common in Angola?
So there are a lot of lucrative jobs in Angola, surprisingly. Post-Civil War, Angola has been doing exceptionally well in terms of economic growth. A large part of the success can be attributed to the abundance of offshore and onshore oil resources that have been recently discovered. So, like I said, oil is a big factor in Angola. And considering that the country's education level may need improvement, there's a lack of technical know-how and expertise in Angola, creating opportunities for people with the right skills. So the country, due to its recent discovery of oil and gas resources, it has a newfound determination to succeed and develop as a country. So it has created a myriad of jobs in Angola, such as like technicians and managers with prior work experience in oil and gas companies. They'll particularly do really well in this industry. Also, like engineers, site technicians, managers, and HR personnel are much in demand there. So, also, if someone is in the construction business, you would find Angola to be specifically high paying because Angola's government is working towards improving their infrastructure. They need people for the construction business. Also, because one of the Millennium Development Goals is education, jobs in teaching are really important. So, they're looking for teachers who have recently relocated and looking for jobs. With a renewed emphasis laid on improving the standard of education in the country, there's a demand for English-speaking teachers so that they can help improve education there.
That's cool that they're doing that over there. What's being done for the empowerment of women?
There's a strategic multi-sectoral response by women's group to issues affecting women. It's promoting and empowering them to assert their civil, political, social, and economic rights and empower the government to provide these rights. The project will fund micro-project activities such as leadership training and thematic studies on relevant issues, including measuring progress on the advancement of gender equity, as well as educational and awareness activities, media campaigns, and legislative and legal rights-related activities. These activities need to be strategic and contribute to changes at policy level and to do the improved implementation of strategic policies or programs concerning women. For such partnerships with involvement of government institutions are encouraged, though this is not determinant for qualification for the funding. So they're just trying to help women understand their rights and help them get those since they don't have a lot of empowerment there. But they also have made significant progress with the empowerment of women.
Thanks, Tash.
Are there any other questions?
I'm doing good. Thank
That's
you.
good. Thank you.
Sounds good.